I'm about to take you into a very special conversation. It's a moment from my Do the New You Mindset Masterclass. I know that's a mouthful, but it was an incredible time of discovery and teaching and development. I got together with my friend Brendan Burchard, #1 New York Times bestselling author, high performance coach, amazing, brilliant mind. And we talked about the 6 mindsets from my book, Do the New You, in detail, like the nitty gritty of it. How do I bring these mindsets into my life? And I'm gonna share with you a section of that conversation today right here. And if you'd like access to the entire masterclass, all you gotta do is go to dothenewyou.com, get the book, and you'll unlock the entire library. This is gonna be a resource to help you. I can't wait to share it with you. And in the meantime, go to dothenewyou.com and you'll get them all. Now enjoy this moment. This is one of our favorites. We have so many misconceptions about what God needs to use to bless us or what we need to move forward, right? Like, okay, I need a team, someone might say, and then I will start this thing, or I need somebody to come along and support me or back me or finance me, or I need this perfect church, or we get all this list of what we think we need for God to do it, right? And so we're holding on to that. Don't you think that a lot of what keeps us from moving forward is what we won't let go of? Our idea of how it should be, our idea of the way we thought God was gonna make. I thought I'd be married and I'm 25 and I was planning to get married at 22. Well, that's the way I thought God was gonna make. So I love what you said, like not only what God did in the past, but what I thought he was supposed to do.
Right.
And now I can't go forward. So let's have a little therapeutic coaching. I know you're not a psychologist or a nutritionist, I know that you're a coach. So let's coach somebody in faith who won't let go of something that they thought was supposed to happen in order to go forward into the way God is making they can't even see right now.
Yeah, I think too often our vision becomes myopic on what was, and we're operating from here. What we should be operating from is our potential and into our future and the best of who we are. And so I always tell people, never limit your vision for who you can be based on your past stories or your current circumstances. Because every great successful person, there was that part of their story where they were broke, down and out, struggling, and they just didn't choose to live there. They choose to work through it because they believed something good would happen. And so I think the first part is going, where is your vision and where are you operating from? Are you operating from the past time zone or the current struggle time zone? Or are you living into and being the best of who you can be for the future you, which is what your book is about.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful. Where are you operating and where's your vision? And then we also have to set up these rhythms in our life where we choose to release the tension and the disappointment.
I love that. Rhythms where we choose to release our tension and disappointment.
So it's
what are your rhythms of release? Write that down in the comments. Rhythms of release.
Yeah, because what happens is, inevitably stuff builds up and we get disappointed, we get angry, we get hurt. And if we never release that, it's like a pressure cooker. And one day it will release, and it will release in a pipe burst. It will release in an inappropriate way for people. That's why therapy is so powerful. You go every week, or you talk to a coach, you talk to them every week. It's a place that you go to release your thoughts and your concepts and your frustrations and your plans. But it can't just be releasing. It has to be what I always call, you release the tension of that and you set the intention for what's next. So I'm somebody, I have to do this every hour. I'm easily distracted. I'm so enthusiastic. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I know this about myself. So every hour, no matter what's happening, when I'm working at my desk, every hour, a little timer goes off. I have it next to my computer, press it, start, 55 minutes, stops. And I push back, close my eyes, and I just start breathing and I release the tension in my body. And I just repeat this little mantra to myself, release, 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 release. And I might only do this for 2, 4, 5 minutes. Just release, release, trying to release all thoughts, all feelings, all emotions, and tension in my body. Once I feel like I'm in a good place, open my eyes and I ask, okay, what's my intention for this next hour? And I learned that in helping a lot of people through grief and trauma. You know, sometimes we think our vision has to be this huge new thing. But when you're really struggling, what's the intention for the next hour? You know what? I'm going to go pick up the kids and I'm going to share some love with them. That's the intention for the next hour.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go pick up the kids carrying all that stuff. So I always say, before every significant interaction with somebody, if you can just release the tension. I teach people all the time, if you're the one who goes to work and you come home to your partner, your spouse, or the kids, when you pull up to the house, tell you what, put the chair back, close your eyes, do a release meditation for about 5 minutes and say, what's my intention? Oh, my intention is go be a good dad, go be a good mom, go be a good provider, go be a good servant, whatever it is. And these little moments that you're just releasing all this frustration and this tension, because people carry a lot of tension and they get lost in the tension. Unless you release that, you know, you can use the metaphor of releasing baggage, but I don't like that metaphor as much, but it's just releasing the tension and setting an intention. It's a constant recalibration into the future and into your faith. And when you can recalibrate into my future, into my faith, then I can survive this moment now.
What I love about this is how you broke it down and shrunk it. Because sometimes when we talk about letting go of the past, moving forward into the future, which is a lot of what this mindset is about with God, there's always a way. And by faith, I will find it. We set that finder so far out in the future. 5 years from now, I want to be here. And sometimes what we really need to release happened 5 minutes ago, not 5 years ago. And I love that you used the word rhythm because I like music so much that I thought, well, that's brilliant because I've thought of letting go of what was as something I do maybe once, like, I let it go, God. How they hurt me, I let it go, God. But when you put it in the term of a rhythm, that's not a rhythm unless I do that,
Right.
that. So letting it go isn't letting it go unless I let it go every time it comes back up.
Yeah, the stuff that your parents did or something that frustrates you, it's going to come up over and over.
And you let it go over and over.
You got to let it go over and over. So this belief that one day you're, you know, completely spiritually free of all pain and problems and the past, maybe some people have that. But for most people, the difficulties of life happen on a recurring basis. There's a rhythm to that too. And so when it comes up again, oh, you know what? That's my old demons. They're fighting me again. Oh, you know what? That's that old behavior. I used to do that because he taught me to do that or she said that. And so as it comes up again, it's an active release process. You're actively releasing it. But here's the thing. If you just release it and you don't set intention for what's next, you'll keep falling prey. It'll keep pulling you back in. You have to set an intention that is higher or part of something that is higher. And that is where I meant by you have to set intention to your future and your faith. Over and over and over, it's like recalibrating back into Him, back into spirit, because these things often, they're dispiriting. And you got to connect to the spirit again. And so release the dispiriting things, tap back in to the spirited things. And when you teach yourself to do this over and over and over again, you suddenly realize, I got a pretty good mindset.
Yeah, because if our brain is operating off of the neural pathways that have created our thought pattern and our mindset is to think a different way, then we can basically say that seeing the way that God is making is a product of thinking the way God thinks. So we're possibly looking at something right now that would be an opportunity, or you could reconcile, or you could actually have love in your life or support in your life, right? And you're telling yourself you can't. And the reason you're telling yourself that you can't right now is because the way that you are thinking, I like how we call God a waymaker, but there are also God blockers in our life. Like think about if God is the waymaker, there are God blockers. Those are the thoughts that cause us to say, well, if it would have happened 5 years ago, I believe it, but it would have happened by now if it was going to happen. Or things like that don't happen to me. They don't happen for me. They happen for others. Or maybe somebody told you. Like I remember My dad was, we both shared about our dads today, and I learned a little bit more about your dad. And I didn't tell you much about my dad. We just realized our dads both went to heaven when we were about the same age, about 32 or 33 years old. Yeah. And, you know, my dad he was a passionate guy. One time somebody was telling me, you'll never be able to go to college. You won't be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, I didn't go to college, and so you're not going to go to college, and you need to make peace with it. It sounds like a weird thing for somebody to tell a kid, right? And it kind of was. I was only like 10 or 11.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even know why they were saying that, but my dad goes, shut your stupid mouth to this other person. And this is not probably recommended parental advice. He said, if I have to kill somebody to get the money to send that boy to college, if he makes good grades and wants to go to college, he'll go to college. And I got a scholarship instead, so I went to college. He didn't have to kill anybody. The story doesn't have a weird ending and that's the day my dad died. The point of it was that he wasn't going to have me limited. We've talked in the previous mindsets, and I want you to go back and watch all of them, because we talked about I'm not stuck unless I stop. We talk about coming from abundance in the mindset, Christ is in me, I'm enough. But now we're moving deeper into this to say, are your thoughts the result of seeds that someone planted and that someone wasn't God? And if they were, can you go back by faith and uproot those through the process? Well, what does that look like? I love Brendan's handles. Release the tension, set the intention. The intention of what? The intention of your future and your faith. With God, there's always a way. By faith, I will find it. And maybe that's why you haven't found it yet, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're not looking by faith.
Right.
You're looking by sight. And so I don't see it, and I've never seen it, and I've never been it, and I've never done it. But this mindset is by faith, I will find it. So how does faith open up your eyes to possibilities that were there all along? And how do you tap into it practically? Because a lot of people will say, so I'm just supposed to, what? Lift my hands? I'm just supposed to quote a Bible verse? Well, yeah, all that's good.
Yeah.
But there's an actual way to activate faith too that's practical.
Yeah, I think you begin, if you are looking backwards, look backwards and notice that all the big moves in your life and all the big random things that look so random, they happened when you were in motion. You were in motion and serendipity happened. You were in motion and you met this person who gave you this lesson that helped open this door later. It's like Steve Jobs said, you never connect the dots until you look backwards. And I think that when you do look backwards, you start to realizing, oh, wait, wow, God's grace is right there. I never thought about that. God opened the door right there. I didn't know that. And what happens is you start to realize that all these things have already opened for you, but they always happen when you're in motion. You made a decision, you went for it, you tried something, and some big lesson or a failure or a pivotal point happened, but they always happen when you're in motion. And so when you trust in that, you say, interesting, doors, looking backwards, I can see doors open when I was in motion. Let me get in motion now because I want new doors to open. I want new doors to open for me, so I have to be in motion. I have this belief, I have this desire, I have this dream, move.
Yeah.
And you write so eloquently about this in the book. It's like, move. Because when you move, the doors are open or you're going to blast through them and discover something. But for the most often, I think that what people discover is, wow, when I get in motion, amazing things start happening.
Yeah.
These random people come into my life.
Yeah.
That's when I met my wife, or that's when I met this business partner, or that's when I got that first sale that led to this sale. And they can start connect that forward again with that trust and that faith. That will happen again. I think coming from that standpoint, it's like it's evidence-based. There's a lot of evidence that great things happen when you're in motion, and a lot of things when you're stopping yourself, fearing yourself, laying on the couch week after week in self-pity. There wasn't none of that happening. None was happening. You were in the 17th bag of Cheetos, nothing happened. But when you got in motion, you got tired of sitting around and you tried something opened. So I think first stepping into that truth.
Even the smallest motion.
Small motion, get out of the house today.
Yeah.
Get the shower today.
I
Go
didn't
ask
tell
for
you
help
this
today.
story, but I'll give it to you now. And maybe I've shared it publicly, but I don't think that I have. I feel like I should, though. When it was time for me to write this book, and I felt like you're either going to do this now and write this, because the message was coming alive in me, but I had become pretty discouraged about the writing process. You know, going from the spoken word, which I'm more comfortable with and I have a lot of muscle memory with, to the written word. And the way I would judge it, and I would think, this is not very literary. So everything in me was telling me, you're not an author. You know, back to the identity, Christ is in me, I am enough, arguing for your limitations. All of these mindsets build on each other, right?
Yeah.
Which is really why I want you to share every session and read the book. But the book actually was completely stalled out in my mind. I tried to write another book. And I remember the day that I had a blank afternoon on my calendar, and something told me that today was the day to set the book in motion. And when you said motion, something jumped in me, because I wanted to say this for the person who is like, I know that there's something that God has put out in front of me in my future, but I am completely paralyzed by what I feel. And here's what I did that day. I went in my closet. I put on a suit. I never wear suits, but I put on a suit. And I drove to my office. And I called my literary agent. And I stood there in a suit, not on a Zoom call, a phone call. So why am I wearing a suit? To set it in motion. Uh-huh. It was my way of saying to myself, I mean business. And this wasn't when I was 23 just starting out in ministry. This is recently that I had to do this for myself.
Yes.
To let myself know we mean business. And the series of meetings that were set up on that day, standing there in a suit that was, by the way, a little too tight because I hadn't put it on in a couple of years. And as the suit squeezed the blood out of me, the faith began to flow. And one of the reasons that the book is here today is because, like I said, instead of sitting and waiting for God to deliver a way or make it obvious, I chose motion. Mm-hmm. And I think set it in motion is a great thing to add to this mindset. It's not just the mindset, but it's setting that mindset in motion, that even the smallest step of putting on a suit, even the smallest step of setting up a call, even the smallest step of flushing it and telling somebody to ask you about that addiction and asking somebody to check in on you. Did you set up the meeting with the therapist that you've been saying you're going to do? Whatever that move is, a lot of times I think the paralysis, the nitty-gritty of it. How do I bring these mindsets into my life? And I'm going to share with you a section of that conversation today right here. And if you'd like access to the entire masterclass, all you got to do is go to dothenewyou.com, get the book, and you'll unlock the entire library. This is going to be a resource to help you. I can't wait to share it with you. And in the meantime, go to dothenewyou.com and you'll get them all. Now enjoy this moment. This is one of our favorites. Write in the comments, I'm not stuck. And just put that in the comment, even though you're like, I am stuck. I'm literally stuck. I'm totally stuck. I'm really, really stuck, okay? That is a challenging paradigm for people, because if you look in the Bible, Paul and Silas seemed stuck in prison, but they praised God and the chains broke loose. Mm. You know, Gideon seemed stuck in a wine press, but God spoke and he became a deliverer. Moses seemed stuck as a murderer, running as a fugitive on the backside of the desert. And then this burning bush, and God had 40 more years of amazing things for him to do. And all of these people felt stuck. So I want you to tell me, what were your reflections on this first mindset? I'm not stuck unless I stop. Do you agree with it? How do you see it? How do we summon our way through that? And let's really dig into this first mindset.
I love it. I love every section of this chapter because it reminds you that everyone feels stuck. I think one of the things you did great in the book is that people see themselves in it constantly. You go, I do feel stuck sometimes in my relationships. I feel stuck in my head. I feel stuck in my career. what am I gonna do? And a lot of people, they feel like that stuck is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm working hard, but I'm stuck. So there's not lack of action for them. They're like, I'm going to work, but I feel stuck. I'm working hard, but I'm not earning more. I feel stuck. And what ends up happening is the more you feel stuck, the more you spin in doubt.
Wow.
And so
when you're stuck, you spin. Write that down.
Yeah.
When you're stuck, you spin.
Yeah. And people always mistake the signal for doubt as a signal to stop.
Tell me
but
more.
doubt is not saying stop. Doubt is a signal to learn. And when you change that frame in your mind, everything changes in your life. I'm so doubtful. Doubt doesn't say, well, stop and don't learn anymore. Doubt is literally, I don't know. So the only way to actually figure it out is get in motion, try, test.
Ooh.
Like doubt is the entrance to the scientific process. Doubt is the entrance to faith.
Wow.
And so when you realize that, like, oh, I'm having all these doubts about this thing, the next thought should be, well, I'm going to have to do something to discover the answer. I'm going to have to do something to discover the truth. I'm going to have to do something to test this hypothesis.
Will it break your flow if I ask you something about that?
No, I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
Every religious person in the world is pulling up James 1 right now going, but the Bible says, let he who hath faith ask and not doubt. For he who asketh in faith shall not receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all he does. And I always thought that verse meant not, don't have doubts or don't feel doubts. I thought it just meant go through the door of your doubt to get to the other side and find your faith.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the themes of the Bible are do not be afraid, or as you taught me, be strong and courageous. That presupposes some doubt.
Right.
Most of the Bible presupposes we have doubts.
Yeah, if he says be strong, I must feel weak because I wouldn't tell you to sit down. You already are.
Yeah, he didn't start the story. Gideon doesn't start the story as,
a mighty
champion and a warrior.
Yeah.
He starts in the wine press.
A wimp in a wine press.
David doesn't start the story with the sling. I mean, so you have to go, each of these stories starts in a place often of doubt.
Yeah.
Or discouragement, despair, division between people. We have to cycle through that. But the thing is, I always say, well, that's why there's another verse. That's why there's another chapter. It's why there's something more. It's like the story might begin in doubt, but the story doesn't stop there. And we have to remember that in our own lives. And so what I loved about this first chapter where he's saying, I'm not stuck unless I stop, is you unlock a lot of reasons that people should not stop and realize that they can change. I love how you talk about, you can defy your default.
Yeah.
That maybe your default was to stop or to do these bad negative behaviors, but you can work your way through them. You can change, you can shift. And I think that's a hopeful message for a lot of people because they really do believe that they're stuck, and stuck is a place of permanence. When what your book is teaching them, stuck was a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And you can change your mind, so you can change your life.
Yeah, when you say stuck, you're probably thinking of all the people that you've coached who basically thought they had gone as far as they could go. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in their business or whether they had wrecked their personal life building their business. And part of what you do is to walk into somebody who goes, and I've heard you say this phrase before, I love it. You go, I've tried everything.
Right? Yeah.
And you go, oh yeah? Everything? Yeah, I've tried everything. And then walk through it because you have an exercise you make people do that I love.
Yeah, it's like, well, I tried everything. I'm like, awesome. I'm so excited. And I get really encouraged for them. And I say, well, if you tried everything, show me the list. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, show me the list. You tried everything. I mean, if you tried everything, then you must have kept a list really detailed of all the things you tried because, of course, you'd have to know what's mutually exclusive. You'd have to know what you tried and didn't work, and you'd have to adjust and do it over again, so show me the list. And most often people go, well, I tried once or twice, and I tried the same. Well, I asked my boss for a raise on Monday. I asked him on Friday. Asked him the same way, every time, all the time. But I've been asking. So you've been asking, okay, but you haven't been adding new value. So it's like you tried one strategy and you hit it 50 times and you didn't adjust it from another way. You haven't tried everything. You tried what you knew. You need to get perspective or approach it in a different way. And I think often too, people when they think of stuck, they think of just negative things. I'm stuck in a bad marriage. A lot of people are stuck in a very happy marriage. And what I mean by that is they don't need to leave the marriage. They have to learn to be different. Try a new angle to find the happiness, the fulfillment, or the intimacy in the marriage. So what I mean by that is sometimes people, they're just at a plateau. They're actually successful. They're actually doing well. Things are good. And a lot of high performers is going, oh, you're doing well. You're actually high performing, but there's this next level for you. And I think that I actually got that out of the book as much as I got out of, oh, I'm in despair, I'm troubled, things are bad. What I also took from the book was things are going well, but there's a new level for me when I'm in a greater connection to my faith. Speaking about plateaus, you have this great statement in the book, don't argue for your limitations.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Because I think a lot of people, they are stuck, but they're stuck in their own limitation.
I heard a motivational speaker say it one time. He said, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Oof.
And that convicted me because I realized how many times I do it. And I don't know if I'm arguing with God like Moses did. God, I can't speak, send somebody else. I don't feel like I'm arguing with God. I feel like I'm just arguing against myself. And I realize what I'm actually agreeing with in that moment is the enemy's view of me.
Yes.
And I don't mean limitation, hey, you've never picked up a basketball, but you can play in the NBA and you're 54 years old. That's not the kind of limitation I have in mind. I mean, the kind of limitation that is rooted in a lie where God is calling you to be this kind of person and to make this kind of impact, or you sense that he's giving you a glimpse and giving you a step to take. And then you start building the case against yourself and gathering evidence for why there's a deficiency in you. And so the quote just blew my mind. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. You live small, you stay in that space. You actually begin to fulfill that prophecy, not the prophecy of God over your life, but your own prophecy. You start to fulfill the enemy's prophecy over your life, that you'll never be this and your dad wasn't that. So what I did, I took that quote, and in the book, I take it a little further. I say, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. But if you agree with God about your potential, you get to grow into it.
Oh, that's good.
Grow into it.
That's good.
That's a whole sermon. Put it in the chat. Grow into it. Because growing into it means, no, I'm not it right now. Like any more than I was 5'9" when I was 5. Mm-hmm. But I get to grow into it. And I think that first step of agreeing with God about your potential is to go, God, you know what's in me. I don't. And that's why I'm very wary of just the know thyself philosophy, right? Like, know thyself is great, but how about part 2? Grow thyself.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the outgrow of reflection and awareness and self-acceptance is that I'm going to grow into who God knows me to be. That's the message of the book. I was writing this book to myself in places going, do the new you, the you that you don't know yet, but that God already does, the one that he chose.
Yeah, and have faith in yourself as equally as maybe he has faith in you, which is a hard thing to grow into.
Well, think about this.
You're growing into the faith of yourself, which is very hard for
of yourself, because people will say, don't believe in yourself, believe in God. Here's the problem I have with that. Who made you? If God made me and I don't believe in me, what he called me to be, then it's him I doubt.
Right.
And that really helps me to get past this sticking point where I feel like, well, I just don't want to hype myself up and say that, I can do great things. Well, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes.
So I think the two go hand in hand. That's why I was passionate to get this masterclass going, to get people out of and to get you out of this mindset that says, well, God is great, but I'm no good. Okay, yeah, we're all sinners. We all need Jesus. We all need forgiveness, but we've been redeemed by him. So what does that speak of us, that he paid that price for us? And that's the limitation that I want you to grow beyond, this view of you that only sees you as flesh and bones and mistakes and disappointments, and to grow into the image of God that you were originally created to be.
So good. I thought of when I was reading it, the angle you took on don't argue for your limitations, which was also, you were saying, be careful about justifying all your vulnerabilities and your challenges and what's wrong with you, because it's easy to go, well, I'm not a good communicator because, and as soon as you say because, you enter the world of either blame or self-comfort to say, I'm not a good communicator because my parents were mean to me. And so I always tell people, listen on limitations, always listen for the word because.
Wow.
I'm like this because, and you'll often add a negative thing. My parents were like this, they didn't believe in me, she mistreated me, they cheated, they stole. Or we're doing it for our own comfort because we don't believe we have empathy from the world. So sometimes when we share our limitations and our vulnerabilities with people, what we're doing is we're reaching out. We're saying, hey, let me just be vulnerable with you real quick. What it is doing is, could you please see me? Can you recognize me? Because I'm not feeling like I like myself, or I'm not feeling good, seen, heard, or I don't feel like the world is fair. So let me tell you this thing that's unfair for me. Could you see it and acknowledge it and say to me, oh yeah, that is unfair, or oh, I understand now why you are like that. And the whole conversation suddenly does something funny. It justifies and sets concrete around the limitation.
Wow.
Suddenly, we have verbalized the reason, because we've verbalized the reason for the limitation, and now we coalesce around it, and we actually just made it stronger. And so empathy can be like that, which we don't talk about in the modern world. Sometimes overly placating to people's, vulnerabilities or limitations and staying on it and stewing on it all day doesn't actually move them through. It's often the difference in my career of, as we'll share, the difference sometimes between a therapist and a coach. Both absolutely necessary, and I'm a huge mental health guy. But there is a difference. Sometimes we'll spend more time over here in a therapeutic context, and a coach is going to try to move you through that limitation a little bit more aggressively. Not that either is right. Both can be really wrong. But I think it's just a casual way to say to people, be careful of just always talking about the limitation and arguing for it and seeking to get empathy and understanding and comfort, because all of a sudden you miss the ability to move through it. And I thought that the movement through the book that you took people on was so powerful because you didn't let them sit there.
Well, thank you for saying that, because when I wrote the mindset, I'm not stuck unless I stop, I thought this could come across really callous to somebody who just found out, like, I'm never going to be able to have children, or I'm never going to be able to fulfill this dream, or I'm never going to have my health back like I did before, or this person has gone out of my life. Like, I lost my dad, and in this area of my life, I do feel like there is a limitation. Well, there is a loss, but I'm trying to get you opened up. And anytime I talk about this, I can't help but think about Moses and the children of Israel at the Red Sea, right? And they're like, okay, God, help us, help us, help us. And they cried out, and Moses says, don't worry, stand still, and you will see the salvation of the Lord, right? Next verse, God says, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites, move on. So it sounds spiritual.